Hey, so let's get into it. Analyzing Kieran's Witchcraft series, Kieran The Light, a Christian rapper, and let's just get into it. I have some responses to some lyrics in his song that I think is important to be a broader discussion. So let's go.
I believe somebody's pulling strings. Don't start me. They want me to get the vaccine. They can't mark me. They got mad when I told them that sage is witchcraft, removing bad spirits with smoke like that. Get rid of that. It's crazy.
Okay. He said they got mad when I told them that sage is witchcraft, removing bad spirits with smoke like that. Get rid of that. That's what he's saying. I think he's saying basically sage is not going to get rid of bad spirits. Basically, is what he's saying. All right, let's keep going.
I don't play them games with Satan. Nah, forcing things to happen ain't natural. That's just playing God.
Forcing things to happen ain't natural. That's just playing God. All right, we'll get back to that. Or one.
They trying to run me out the booth, persecuting me for telling the truth. They never knew. Nah.
So I just want to say this. I have great respect for people, out here telling the truth, particularly as it pertains to the Bible and things like that. I have my own album called Nation Soundtrack of the Exodus. And some of you on the channel have heard it before. We made it a long time ago, like seriously, like about 25 years ago, actually. It's 25 years old. We released it in 2002. Well, it's almost 25 years. Um, and when I was recording my album, there was pushback. It seemed from me, even from the people who were like around me recording, while I was recording, because we didn't all have the same beliefs. Actually, I was pushing back against anything that was outside of the Old Testament, including Christianity. And so, I mean, I guess I'm still keeping that same theme in a way. I'm talking to a Christian rapper. I'm, referencing his music and with some issues that I have with it. But, my vantage point is much larger now than, kind of not being open to different religious ideologies, particularly when they are in common, right? Anyway, I get what Kieran is saying. They trying to run me out the booth, persecuting me for, telling the truth. The thing is, that's not what I'm doing in this video. That's not my goal. Because I respect that. My goal is to delineate the difference between witchcraft and magic, because there is a difference. So let's just listen to a little bit more and then get into my spiel, I guess.
Somebody needs to go and give God an apology because we ignore his prophecies and just worship astrology. I don't care.
And I'm pausing in between. It might copyright the video, which is cool because I still have yet to be monetized. Starting to put more content on the channel, so I'm not really worried about that. Hopefully, Kieran and the team won't have a issue with me playing some snippets of the music to make a point. So he's like, I don't care if you're Aquarius, Sagittarius, God did not create it. You probably think it's hilarious. Interesting. Okay. All right. God definitely created the stars and right in the moon and things like that. And there is a connection there with the signs, right? Signs, seasons, and wonders. Okay. But I hear what he's saying. A little bit more.
God did not create it. You probably think it's hilarious. And all the Greek mythology nonsense, I ain't having it. And anyone who called himself a god to me is blasphemous.
All right. So I'm gonna pause his music there. If you want to hear more, check out his lyrics. We'll probably be going through just a little bit of them just to kind of do a play-by-play. I'm not going to do a whole play-by-play of all his lyrics and all that. I mean, he's doing his thing, right? He's a soldier for the Most High, and he's speaking to what he feels is his understanding. A lot of it I feel is correct. But some of it I do not. And I'm going to split some hairs on this because I think it's very important. One thing I think it is important to remember is that magic is not a bad thing. And magic is actually a godly thing. So let's get into that. Okay, so let's define what witchcraft is. And this is a simple Wikipedia definition. Witchcraft is the use of magic by a person called a witch. Obviously, traditionally, witchcraft means the use of magic to inflict supernatural harm or misfortune on others. And this remains the most common and widespread meaning. Witchcraft means the use of magic to inflict supernatural, right? Supernatural being super above or beyond, greater than the natural forces. So using the spiritual elements or doing something in the physical elements to affect the spiritual elements to then affect the physical elements again. Doing something in the physical or what they call the natural to affect the spiritual, which then affects the natural or the physical again. Okay, that is what the human being likes to call magic, because whatever the human being cannot pick up with its eyes, it's a mystery and it calls it magic. However, magic is also utilizing God's power as well. So again, the delineation and the point of my video is to say that witchcraft uses magic, but not all magic is witchcraft. So, yes, be against the negative use of magic to harm others, because that is not a godly thing. It is not a godly thing to call on lower forces or what they call darker forces, right? They like to say things that are dark or evil, even though to a degree, when we're talking about shadow energy, there is some truth to that. But we also realize that the carbon is a darkness too, that is compacted light, where we all come from, right? So there's a difference between that as well. Sometimes when I delineate darkness, I like to say shadow, as opposed to like the carbon energy. Anyhow, so yes, calling on, other deities, right? Things that the creator has created. Because remember, let's just remember this. The creator said, and I can get the scriptures. The creator said, I create good, I create evil. Life and, right? If there's evil in the streets, did I not put it there? Now, I know some people have issues with this in the scriptures because it's like, well, what kind of God is that? But the creator also told us to choose life, right? To choose those higher things. My point is that really that's more of a metaphysical way of saying that everything has to be included in the universe, good and bad, high and low frequency, but that our higher, or the creator's ideal, wish for us, if you will, is for us to choose the higher things, right? The things that we would categorize as positive. So in that vein, I definitely agree with Kieran, but we have to make a distinction between witchcraft and magic, because the creator has given us a gift of power in this physical dominion or in this physical plane, right? And that uses or gives us the power of dominion, right? That's why that word was coming up. We have dominion over this physical environment, which includes doing things in the physical realm that affects the spiritual realm, that then affects the physical realm again, right? Doing things in the physical realm that affects the spiritual realm, that then affects the physical realm again. Maybe what Kieran is saying is that, look, okay, just reserve the magic and all those things to God, right? Give God that credit. And to that, I would agree. But again, we have a certain permission, and I'll go into some writings and things like that, personal experience, etc., to kind of illuminate at least my point. But that, the Creator has given us certain permission and powers to do certain things. You are a magical being. And the point of my video is just to say, do not be afraid of your power. And the issue that I have with it, with this type of thinking that is rampant in the Christian church, generally speaking, at least publicly, because behind closed doors, there's probably a lot of Christians using a lot of magical things. I'm just saying. But the type of thinking overall is, if this is anything, spooky or anything that's not expressly written in the book, in the Bible, is wicked. And that is not necessarily true. Okay? Because we should know that there have been tampering. There's been tampering with the books. There are agendas. Now we know about 325 AD. A lot of us do. The Council of Nicaea, right? And other councils that put these, certain books together and said, okay, this is going to go in the Bible. That's going to go. That's not going to go in there. The book of Enoch, get rid of that, etc. Right? They don't even want to tell you that Jesus could have been a Gnostic. I mean, Kieran, look up Gnosticism. I don't know. That's the Messiah you're waiting for. He's more than likely a Gnostic. Look that up. Because Gnosticism is about the wisdom within and your personal direct experience with the Most High, which can be very, very, very magical. I know I'm going into other things, but it all converges. It's all about power. And so, yes, ideally, or yes, I would say ultimately, the goal is to, whatever kind of magic or power you have, give the credit to the Most High. To that, I agree with. But again, my point is, do not be afraid of the powers that the Most High has given you, because you do have magical powers as a direct reflection, let's just say, of Yah, of the Creator. As a human being, you have a lot of capability of magic, and we can get into some of that as well. Okay, before I get into the definition of magic, because I do want to delineate the difference between witchcraft and magic, I want to read a little bit more about the definition of witchcraft. It says the belief in witches has been found throughout history in a great number of societies worldwide. Most of these societies, listen, have used protective magic or counter magic against witchcraft, and have shunned, banished, imprisoned, if you will, physically punished or alleged witches. Now that gets into a lot of other things, but the first part of that sentence is there is part of the societies, in the past, however, maybe still currently going on in different countries and things like that, who use protective, what they call magic, again, using usually like some kind of natural, maybe herb or plant or something like that. It could be other means to combat the negative, what Kieran is calling witchcraft. Even in that sentence, I just want to show that there's a difference between magic and witchcraft, okay? And when it goes into the end of the sentence, they've shunned, banished, or actually imprisoned or punished actual witches. And I'll speak to that just a little bit. It gets into like the witch hunts and things like that, right? Some of you may know more about that than I even do. But basically, the witch hunts, generally speaking, it has been said by some that those hunts have been used to punish spiritual women, maybe some men too, but spiritual women. And spirituality is not to be condemned. Again, that is the reason for my video. We are very spiritual and powerful people, the melanated people, particularly the children of God, and others that are less melanated. just people in general. This is a very spiritual universe. And you have things at your disposal that can affect your environment. And it is not necessarily a bad thing. But again, this type of rhetoric, if you will, and I know, seems like it's a good thing. It's in the Bible, right? But has been used to persecute people who did not necessarily, qualify to be persecuted. In other words, they weren't doing anything negative to anybody else. It's just they didn't fit the agenda of the time. Or maybe they were too powerful, right? Or maybe they were talking too much about the feminine presence of God, etc. And they didn't, they didn't fit into it. So they were fit into a category, which, just because they were using some plants that healed this ailment or affected this physical event. Because food is very powerful, and I'll get into that, because that is something that I particularly practice, and it's called food alchemy. And guess what? It is very natural, and it is very holy. There's even a place in the scriptures. I can get the verse, but where I think it was Prophet Elisha, not sure, but one of the prophets, they were eating like the stew or something like that, and then the other people came to him and said, man of God, whatever it was, like there's death in the pot, right? I'm trying to the words, certain words, but anyway, it's some kind of maybe some toxin or whatever it was, and he just sprinkled some herbs and did a little stir, and all right, there you go, now you can eat it. It's like bippity boppity boo type. You know what I mean? Whatever he did, somebody probably would look at him like, oh, you like today? Oh, like what would you say about that, Kieran? Like the man of God, like was he a warlock? What do they call it, a Wicca? I'm doing a little study. What was that, witchcraft? He just did a few sprinkling of some herbs. He said, okay, it's gone. Y'all got it now. Okay. All right. Or maybe you wouldn't say that qualifies under witchcraft. But again, these are the delineations, right? The splitting of the hairs that we need to do in this conversation is very important, because this affects people's lives, right? And there's an entire community that is separated. Let's say God's people, right? Because it's enough that I know we have the different religions, but even above and beyond that, right, we have an entire group of people. You can call them the spiritual community, the metaphysical community. I like to say that sometimes. I'm a part of the metaphysical community and the religious community. Sometimes you can kind of overlap. But we have an entire faction of people in what we call the spiritual or conscious community that they don't deal with like the church. And they don't, because they're like, they don't want to deal with any of their magic. They don't, anything spiritual is demonic, is, like anything, And we have this chasm, right, between God's people, because there's God's people on both sides. I'm not just talking about the Christian church either. I'm a Hebrew. Like I've never grown up in a Christian church. Remember, Jesus is not a Christian. He's a Hebrew. So we got different, groups, the Abrahamic religions. We could include Islam in it too, because that's part of Abrahamic religions as well. There are brothers and sisters. I'm just saying. So, but we have a faction of God's people that do not deal with the Bible or church people, not because they're necessarily bad. Some of them have given up. Some of them have, maybe some people, atheists or whatever. Not everybody in the spiritual community is atheist, but some people who are atheists, they just gave up because they are like looking around this world like they don't even know if there's a God, right? That's another issue, but there is a God. And some of the signs of the things that are going on right now is actually more of a clue that the Creator is working, and all the Creator's hosts, like the angels and things like that we can't see, the elements and things like that of the universe. And the universe, Kieran, and anyone else, is not a curse word either, because we could talk about the universe. But yes, we could speak about it in a context where the creator created the universe. So anyway, again, my point is that there's a chasm and a divide between these communities, because one community says, y'all do not embrace your magic. You think that everything that is unseen, that is spiritual, is negative and demonic and witchy and all of that, and that's wrong. And the other side is saying that what the church is doing is too rigid. And so anyway, this is an effort to bridge the gap, because I am a very spiritual woman. Started out more religious, I would say, actually. Old Testament, raised and reared. No New Testament now. Till later, I have more respect for the New Testament and things like that as I started to find out certain things were true. But there's a lot of tampering in that book as well, a lot of agendas and things like that. But I'm a very, very religious woman, and I'm also very spiritual and very metaphysical, particularly when I started getting into fasting, right? These lines, they converge. They start to converge. So we're going to, Lord willing, we're going to get into some of the specific ways that these lines start to converge between, magic and even holiness, in the scriptures. Okay. So let's read the definition of magic. Magic, number one, the use of means such as charms or spells. Now they added that in there. Believed to have supernatural power over natural forces, right? We spoke about that earlier. Okay, the super, greater than natural, which is, they're just talking about the unseen, right? Power over the natural, what we call the natural, or the physical elements. Okay, and it does not have to be charms or spells. Magic rites or incantations. Incantations are, and again, this is all part of what magic is, or how it's classified. Incantation is a use of spells or verbal charms spoken or sung as a part of a ritual of magic. Also, written or recited formula of words designed to produce a particular effect. Now, this reminds me, the incantation reminds me of reciting affirmations over and over again. Pardon me. It reminds me of reciting affirmations over and over again. Not even saying that that's like a negative thing. I had gotten into doing that myself, like, I guess last year, maybe a little bit this year. I've been on my metaphysical journey, and knowing that everything is a part of the universe, everything is God, right? I can get into that because he mentioned that as well. People who call themselves God, that's blasphemous. Okay. All right. Well, there are certain things that the human being, if they're not awakened to, they will not know. They will think that it is blasphemous. And it could be made a blasphemy if the individual has been awakened, right? And realize they are God in a body. Like what happened to me when I was fasting in 2012, over 10 years ago. And I even looked at myself after this whole series of, yes, questions in my mind, and the universe showing me, yes, the universe, Kieran, the universe. And yeah, showing me that everything exists inside of God's body, right? That's what we would call pantheism or panentheism, right? So this is like my wheelhouse a little bit, so that's why I wanted to make a video on this. Pantheism and panentheism are different. I am a panentheist. I call myself now a Hebrew panentheist, which means that panentheism means basically that the individual knows, I'm not even going to say believes, knows that they exist inside of God's body, that the universe is God's body, right? So in other words, if God had a physical body, it wouldn't be just one man, Jesus, Yeshua. No, it is the entire universe is God's body, and we exist inside of it. So if you exist as a living cell inside of something, what does that make you? It makes you a part of that organism, which is God. Now, panentheism also says that the source, the creator that is projecting this reality that we call life or physicality, is greater than its creation, or what I like to say, projection. Because the creator did not create us as a separate being from itself. It is projecting light onto its own body as if a person would stand in front of an x-ray machine or in that type of thing, and it can see through its own body, and it can see everything, the bones and whatever's in there, all of that, right? Or a microscope, it can see the cells. That's what God is doing with you. That's what you are. This is what most people mean, Kieran, certainly myself, when we say I am God. It is not I am Yah or the total consciousness that is projecting us. We come from that. It is saying that I am one of those living cells that lives inside of God's body. And guess what, Karen? A cell is a fractal. Okay. Do we need to look up the word fractal? I am God. What does it mean? I'm not saying I'm the most high. The most high, most is the operative word, right? Which means the highest. Okay. The highest. Okay. The term fractal was coined by the mathematician Benoit Mandelbrot in 1975. It actually wasn't that long ago. It means broken or fractured. I don't like that part, but it was changed or evolved to mean an extension of the concept of theoretical dimensions and geometric shapes. But fractal also means that in every portion of that, small piece of the larger piece contains every aspect of the larger piece. I know. All right. So let's see the actual definition. So fractal, noun, a curve or geometric figure, each part of which has the same statistical character as the whole. Fractals are useful in modeling structures such as eroded coastlines, etc., in which similar patterns recur at progressively smaller scales, and in describing partly random or chaotic phenomena such as crystal growth, galaxy formation, etc., right? Basically, we are fractals of God. Okay? Which means, as a fractal, you contain every part of the whole. What did Rumi say? You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. Beautiful. That's what we mean when we say we are God, Kieran. We're not saying we're the most high. We're saying we're one living cell that lives inside of this beautiful body that is God. Now, you may have the human vantage point that, yeah, God created the universe, but God is separate from the universe. That's when I was talking about panentheism. It's both. God is both greater than its projection. Like if you were to stand in front of a mirror, you are there and your projection is also there. You live outside of the mirror. But if you were to look in the mirror, there is an entire image of you. We live in the mirror, Kieran. We live in the light of God. That is an actual truth. We are the light of God. This is not just words that sound good, and it just means like this ethereal wisdom. Like that is a part of it. But we're literally the light of God. Refraction. Just look it up. I'm not saying you don't know what refraction is, but in this context, look up refraction. This is what is happening. God is reflecting its own self into an environment and reflecting itself back to experience what we call life. It is through these characters that we call human beings and bodies and trees and animals, everything. It all lives inside of God's body. So that is panentheism. And I am a panentheist since I fasted as a raw vegan a long time ago. And I had a vision. I didn't know about this stuff either. If somebody would have told me today, God, I'm like, what are you talking about? I would have said probably the same thing. So I get that. But people are waking up. And what I'm saying is that there is a portion of the human being and a portion of the human mind that once the veil is lifted, that's what they call it. The human being remembers who and what it is while it's in the body. Because we know who we are when we, go back, hopefully many, many, many years from now, right? In our hundreds, and you go back to the Most High. And then you're like, oh, I'm an orb of light. Oh, I was you all along, God. In this one body, experiencing this perspective. But when you can wake up to that while you're living and be in the world and not of it and all that good stuff, like, Jesus, you waiting for it, right? Okay. Jesus is here, by the way, but that's and that's part of this video as well. It's the Christ consciousness. Let's just say the actual Christ is here. It's not just the Christ consciousness, because the Christ consciousness would not be here if the Christ wasn't here. So that's for all the other people who think that only the Christ consciousness is entering the building. The Christ consciousness enters the building because the Christ entered the building. Literally. But that's another video. Okay, so we're fractals of God. So that's what that means. It's not blasphemy, son of God. But I get what you're saying. I get it. It sounds like it is, but this is the perspective. Okay. Let's go over a little magic in the scriptures. We don't have to go through every scriptures. I think these are so general or common that you would know, right? Most of you watching the video would know about these. Moses and the bush not burned. Is that not magic? That's magic. Yeah. It's not witchcraft. It's magic. Maybe some people will say it is, because there's people out there, they don't even respect the Bible. So, I get it. Now, because there's tampering in the book. And there's agendas and there's, things. So I get that, right? It's so much on different sides, It's just like, but that is God's magic, right? It was a bush, but it wasn't burned, but it looked like it was burned. Like, Moses, what were you seeing? Okay. An apparition, right? Moses and Aaron, parting the Sea of Reeds. Well, that was later, but in Egypt, right? Mitzrayim is that word in Hebrew, meaning captivity, that type of thing. We know what happened then. Passover is coming up, isn't it? The time I'm making this video, the 16th of March, 2026, and I'll probably obviously upload it after that, but that's the date it is now, and Pesach is coming up. That's how you say Passover in Hebrew. And that time was a very magical time from God. Now I guess if somebody was looking, outside looking in, they're like, what is going on between these magicians? Is that witchcraft? Moses put down the staff, or was it Aharon? One of, they working together, put down the staff and swallowed up all the other magicians, serpents and, all of that stuff. Magic against magic. But one was God's magic and one was man's, right? Human beings. That's the difference. That's the point I'm making with this. Not everything is witchcraft. So if you would have seen this man throw down a staff and it became a serpent, would you say that was witchcraft? This before the law, before it was written. I'm asking a question. If you see somebody doing that today and they say, I am the man of God, I am the woman of God, even though she might get some pushback because she's a woman, but that's a whole nother thing. Not from everybody, but we're getting a little better with that. But I am the man of God with the staff. He throws it down and it becomes a serpent. What are you going to say to that? In real time today, I don't know. That would look like witchcraft. But he's saying, I come in the name of the Lord. God is very magical and has taught you magic and giving you permission to use some of this magic, to defeat, the enemies, to rule over your environment. You mentioned that in your lyrics too. I was going to do a little play-by-play with all your lyrics, but some of them are just coming up to my mind. You said something like making things happen. It's like playing God. Again, we went over to the God thing. Again, it's not to play like you're the Most High. We're not the Most High. We have to still give credit to the being and the consciousness that is over all of us, that is projecting us. There's a consciousness that's doing that. But at the same time, you still have to remember you are a fractal of that consciousness. But yes, you are a child of God. You want to use that terminology, that's fine. But you're not a separate creation from God. But yes, making things happen is playing God. What was Moshe doing? What was Moses doing? What was he? He was making some things happen. Now he got direct instructions from the Most High, so maybe that's your delineation, right? God said, okay, when they say this, you do that. You say this, and I'm gonna do that. Like, so maybe is that the difference? If that's the difference, fine. But I want you to see that there are some people who get their directions from the Most High directly, Kieran. It's not written in the book now. They didn't write everything in the book. It says the secret things belong to Yah. But the things that are revealed to the children of Israel forever. Now I know. And I believe it's Deuteronomy. Might be 4 or something like that. Sometimes I get mixed up with 4 or 6. Again, this is just free flowing. some of the things. Where it says, do not add to this word nor take away, right? And so some people feel that if you add anything or say anything that's not in the scriptures, oh my goodness. But again, we talked about the books that they purposely left out. There's a lot of spiritual people back then who were righteous. I mean, what book was Enoch reading? He walked with God years before even Abraham was here. Do you understand? How did he walk with God without the Bible, Kieran? And I'm saying your name because I'm using this as a example. You seem like a very I was gonna say nice young man. I sound like somebody else, somebody's grandma. Nobody's grandma, but I'm somebody's mom. But you do. You sound like a soldier for the Most High. I love a lot of your music, but I had to say something about this witchcraft series because we gotta split some hairs and we gotta make some differences. That's all. Because a lot of the content I do like, and I do actually agree with. So a little bit. I don't want this video is getting pretty long, but so just want to kind of go over some things and then I guess wrap it up soon enough. All right. So sage, you mentioned sage. Does it get rid of like spirits and stuff? Maybe not. I will say this, that there is incense, right? Used in the scriptures. It's very important. The sweet savour, right? That the Most High wants to smell. That was burning in the temple. You got frankincense and myrrh. You got all these things, these ritualistic scents that were used in the times of the scriptures. Even the wise men brought it. The baby Jesus, right? You know what I'm saying? Come on now, Karen. There's no sage in there. That's what you're trying to say. Sage is a natural plant, right? So I get what you're saying, but yeah. So are you saying that, like, if there's something around like that, you should pray it off, right? That type of thing. I think that's what you are probably saying. But again, there could be other reasons that a person could have, certain things around them. Now, again, this is a very spiritual universe. Could they be allowing an openness in their own body to allow spirits to have access to them? Like, what are they watching? What are they intaking? Are they smoking, doing some type of drug or whatever, allowing an openness, right? And then you get into other things. So just want to say that, and maybe that's what some of your content is saying, like as if like you just wave around some sage and that's gonna get rid of some spirits. And again, I don't know if that's the total context of like what spiritual people are saying when they use sage, right? They're clearing their environment. Remember also that sage is an age-old Native American, practice. Utilizing the burning of sage. A lot of us we got Indian in our family. That's. But you know what I'm saying? Like the natives and the indigenous people. It is said that part of them are part of the tribes of Israel as well, and these are ancient practices, right? So could some of that sage, in the spiritual community be kind of like left over from even some Hebrew practices? Who knows, right? This is where the lines, blur, right? A little bit. Again, I wanted to delineate. And again, if anybody has any opinions on this, please share, because I'm not saying I know everything. I don't. But I'm a catalyst anyway. So I know enough to know enough, right? To spark the debate, the research, right? It's a lot of ground to cover. And so to do deep dives in a lot of things, it takes a lot of time. But it was enough in there that I wanted to speak to. So let's get to, okay. Observer of times. You mentioned astrology. And I was talking about earlier, the affirmation. So I did want to get to a point with that. In saying the affirmations over and over and over again, it could be a form of, what was the word, incantation, which could be classified. Did they classify that as part of magic? I don't think they classify that as part of witchcraft, though it probably, again, witchcraft uses magic, but magic is not necessarily witchcraft. I found, that's what I was saying before, I found that, if I say an affirmation, say over and over and over again, because that's part of the like conscious, not conscious community. I say the spiritual community, because it's kind of, anyway, where some people recommend like saying things over and over and over again. There's a certain name for it, but and that helps to manifest, right? And I know the Christians, they don't like that word manifest, though that is actually like, that's a biblical thing too. I mean, that's a part of your power, manifest, to bring something to fruition or creation from the spiritual world to the physical. Like, that's what manifestation means. But again, I think what you're getting at, and what I do appreciate is you're saying, like, for the most part, I think, don't do these things without giving credit to the source. And I'm with you on that. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but with even a lot of things that I explain, like, okay, even if God does have magic, but if you're using this power and not giving credit to where you learned it from, to the creator, then that's where the issue comes in. I actually agree with that. So I'm trying to stay on the point, because I was just thinking about something else as well, about like building like idols and stuff that comes into play. So I'm going to try to put a pin in that one and come back to that. But to finish my other point is that the affirmations, I found that when I was saying affirmations over and over again, like say I was saying, think about finances, saying, okay, I have $10,000, I have $10,000, whatever. I could start doing certain things that could lead to that, right? But when I compare it to praying, not necessarily for the $10,000, though we could pray for specific amounts of money. I know that people are probably scared to do that as well, or say not to do that. And maybe you could be right. Pray for the means that will get you that. But remember, the Creator did say, Deuteronomy 8:18, I've given you the power to get wealth. Just remember me, right? So, but anyway, but when I just pray for, guidance, right, on what I should do, like, should I invest in this course? Should I do that? Like, when I said, let me just put the affirmations down just for a moment, like the over and over and over and over again, because it could lead a person to a certain point, but is that the ideal place that the Most High wants for you, right? So that's so I was like, okay, That's where you get into God's will, right? You pray without ceasing, as the Bible says. You do that as opposed to the affirmations without ceasing, because the Creator has a higher will than even what you might see as this goal that you might want to achieve. So on that, I agree with you, even if though you didn't like address that specifically right here. But this is, again, it's all part of it. I noticed that when I prayed and I just switched it, I was like, okay, let's put the affirmations down just for a moment. Let me just pray without ceasing type of thing. Little things. I'll be in the store, okay, yeah, okay. What should I get from this store? I have my plan, but like ultimately, and then I might remember something that I wasn't even thinking about, right? That type of thing. So when I started doing that, I was led to really doing more of this, what I'm doing right now, like what I was already doing before, but I put that down because I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, I had income from like, another source, but I'm like, this is like, slow type. You know what I mean? I love to talk about these things. I love, my music and all that. But I was putting it down. I'm putting it just to the side, and like, no, I'm going to invest in this course to just get me the money right here. And it was like, when I started to pray more and other things, use the food alchemy as well, which is putting more chlorophyll in the body, because that connects one directly to source energy. Again, I hope this is not too scary for you, because this is a part of the powers that we have. And that is using the sun, which is God's energy, and the food that the Creator has given us to put in your body as a Bluetooth connector to the information from God. And I do that. And that's part of the power. And that's part of the things I want to actually teach and share with humanity as part of my gift of knowledge and learning, right? Which could be classified as magic or witchy, or you're using food to like make things happen in the world, because it changes things in your environment and everything. It affects people, and it gets deep. It gets deep. And I'm not talking about just like putting something in a pot and I'm not talking about necessarily like that, because this is what we think of, like, again, with the witches. But again, see, this is what I'm saying. The lines, we got to delineate these lines, because we just had an example of the man of God, with the food in the pot, right? Sorry, I might have to pause this part of the video. I know I got y'all here. 2 Kings 4. All right. So you can look that up, right? The stew was poured out for the men. But they began to eat it, and they cried out, "Man of God, there is in the pot," and they couldn't eat it. And then he fixed it right on up. Right. But I'm not even speaking about that. I'm speaking about internally eating a mango that is full of light and chlorophyll. And you eat that, a piece of it. You don't even need a whole bunch. And you're going to have a better day. Why? Because now your cells are actually experiencing all of that chlorophyll, all that light, all the vitamins and minerals that is in that food. And it's going to possibly change certain things that could have happened that particular day. Like, it's like good luck type things like that. Yeah. Yeah. Would you call that witchy or whatever? But this is God's magic. There is a difference. And that's the point of the video. So again, I noticed that when I was praying more, I veered off of the courses that I wanted to take. Literally, I was going to invest in this course, and it was utilizing like AI and stuff like that, which I still kind of utilize. I have that's a whole nother issue. I know people are very passionate about that, and I do get that. So, but it was a channel, and it was kind of building on something that I didn't really want to do. It wasn't bad necessarily, but it was just something that it wasn't my passion. But I was like, I was just going to do it from money, and I wasn't hurting nobody. But there were some areas that I was going into, like promoting certain people that don't do some of the best things. Like one of the channels, like an Elon Musk type things, like cars and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh, this is just a car channel. This is not, yeah. But Elon Musk, does other things that are not godly. So why am I making a channel that it may be about cars, but it has nothing to do with my purpose? So when I started praying, I just, it's like the Most High was telling me, it's time for you to start speaking out more about these truths that you've been knowing about for all this time. And I had been, like I said, sporadically here and there. You can see some videos on my channel, but might be 1, 2, 3, 4 a year, something like that. And I go about and look at somebody else's stuff, which is cool. But no, the Most High said, no, it's time for you to speak. It's time for you to do your music. It's time for you to do all these things, and I will make a way. But you need to speak for me. You need to speak to the people of the Most High. It is time now. And I said, oh, whoa. It took me totally off of what I was really about to invest in. Praying over and over as opposed to doing like that affirmations and stuff. So I agree with you on that. Now, you didn't mention affirmations specifically in that example, but you mentioned like the astrology and stuff like that. So I do, astrology used to be a sticking point for me because I was very, very Old Testament strict, like thou shalt not observe times. And when we learned from our elders, observing times is literally, that's what astrology is, observing times. Not, different than astronomy. Because like there's nothing wrong with astronomy. That's how they navigated, the seas and all that good stuff before the clocks and all that was around. Like reading celestial bodies is a part of being a part of the universe. And astrology is a part of that, because if we are born at certain times and things like that, it does affect how we behave and things like that. Now, should we watch horoscopes every day? Should we base our lives on this, or should we be more focused on, again, praying without ceasing, the Most High, and that type of, which is a more holistic thing. In other words, okay, the Creator has put these powers and put these, celestial bodies here and these arts for us to learn and utilize to a degree. But let's keep, as QB1, I'm from Philly, so I was born in Philly. For the Eagles, say, let's keep the main thing the main thing. Let's keep the main thing the main thing, and that is the Most High, right? So in that I would agree, but again, I would not, just wholly dismiss astrology like it's this, negative, thing. It is your right to interpret where you live. The universe is where you live. What do you think that you're doing on December 25th, Kieran, when you celebrate Christmas? Now, it might not say astrology in particular, or is it? You're definitely celebrating a celestial event, which is the winter solstice, which people demonize. I mean, that's how I learned it too. Because the way that some heathens have practiced and celebrated the winter solstice was in a very hedonistic way. So, okay, that's a pagan. But to celebrate the movement of the celestial bodies and the fact that your Messiah rose on December 25th, which is the sun, the actual sun, and there's a correlation between that and the stories of Jesus, the Son of God. It all goes together. Do you see? We cannot just reject everything unless you're splitting hairs. It is not going to tell you about the winter solstice necessarily in the Bible. It's going to say, oh, he was crucified on this day, and it was the 3 days, or whatever, and then he rose on the. I wasn't born a Christian, but you get what I'm saying. You're talking about the sun, the actual sun. Now, there are some people who know that, and then they reject Jesus, right? They get conscious. This is what I'm saying. It's extremes on both sides. Because there's some people who know, that whole story is made up. Ain't no Jesus. They go to the extreme on the other side. How about both are true? How about that? How about both of them are true? Could it be that there is an actual physical Jesus? And that we're both at the same time converging and observing and celebrating the sun's movement again on December 25th, which is not Jesus's actual birthday. There's a reason. It's not just because it's Nimrod's birthday and that's pagan and we should just not observe it at all. You're observing the solstice, which is very important. And there are some very pivotal things that happened to me in my life when I started paying attention at the end of December. And I was always reared and brought up like the New Year is in the spring. Like, we know that. It's coming to some people don't, but I'm just saying, like, common sense. Okay, we get that. We get it. The flowers are going to start blooming and all that. But it doesn't mean that you dismiss the winter solstice, because that's not, quote, the real New Year. It's a very pivotal time when the sun starts moving again on December 25th. Move it up. Rising again after it was still for 3 days. Do we see? You have to split hairs on things. It's not just just one thing and that's it. Because if I don't see it, if it's not written there, there's a lot that was not included in that Bible that they just didn't want you to know because they didn't want you to know about your powers. There are some things that, these witches doing, that's not right. Calling on these deities, whatever they doing. The stuff that's happening with the fowls and all that. Yeah, it's a lot of witchcraft in that. Yeah, condemn it. Break it down. It's breaking down anyway. And if our people want to, do stuff like that and build groves, and now they want to form their idols and stuff, like, I don't have a Buddha. I don't need to see a picture of my God. Because my source and creator doesn't have an image. I am the image of the Most High. How about that? All of us are. But we don't have to build something. That's in the scriptures. They build it with their hands. They turn around and worship it. like how you building something with your hands and then you're turning around and worshiping it. How about you worship the energy that gave you that gift, that ability to do so in the first place, which is the Most High, right? So in that, Kieran, we agree. Okay, so I'm almost done. Gets into necromancy, right? It's like speaking to the dead and channeling and all that stuff. Well, channeling, again, I channel. I don't channel spirits and stuff, like speaking to anybody that's passed on. That's not my thing. I want to say that's not my gift. Some people, it just comes to them. I don't know. I don't know if I could necessarily condemn somebody like that if like it comes to them from birth. Like, but I channel in terms of, especially when I eat a lot of like chlorophyll. Like if I don't have a lot of like heavy cooked foods and stuff like that, I'm in the ethers all day. Channeling, a direct channel to the Most High, though, and from the Most High, downloads information all around us. You know how we like have our devices and we connect from this one to that one? What do you think is this? Is invisible? I'm just saying it's just in general now. Is it invisible or is it actual information that we're connecting that we cannot see? Well, you don't need a phone to do that. Or you don't need a computer to do that. You can use your mind and your body to do that. And it's not, you can receive information that is not written in the Bible, Kieran. Because when Moshe learned the 10 Commandments and received the 10 Commandments after he was fasting for 40 days and 40 nights. Prior to that, there was no written law. necessarily. You understand? But he received it from somewhere. He received a direct download, is the point. Where did he get it from? So if somebody in these days says, well, I received a direct download and vision from the Most High to do this or that, are you going to call them? What are you going to call them? I mean, maybe we call them prophets, which that's what we should do. But are we going to call them, a witch or something and reject what I guess it depends on what it leads to, right? So, I just want to just make these points that not everything is in the book. Again, Enoch walked with God. That's what it says in the book now. How did he do that before the Bible was written? Okay, the questions. All right, praise him. That means he had to receive some information directly from source. Okay, so again, that's basically the point of my TED Talk. And overall, I highly respect anyone who has the courage to do what you're doing, Kieran. To, as they say, speak truth to power. As one of the ladies I follow, I can't remember her name right now. She calls them the powers that were. But the powers that used to be, I like to say it like that. The powers that are not. The powers that never were, really, because they never were. It was just a temporary thing. Speaking truth to that, right? And to your own people who may reject some of the good things that you may have to say, especially when you get very radical. And I'm talking about like Christians too, because there's some Christians who don't want to hear certain things. Because when it gets to like the law, like how much of y'all really like following the laws of the Most High? Like y'all think it's like done away with? Like I hear you railing against this and this and that, but like some of your own group, they don't want to hear about all these rules and stuff. They might rail against witchcraft, but they don't want to hear about keeping the Shabbat day. Like, do you keep a Shabbat day on Saturday, Kieran? Because I would, I'm just saying. I would like to know now. The Most High would like to know. Because we can rail against witchcraft. We could pick the list over here. Are you also telling your people to rest on the seventh day and not go to work? And, just got paid. Friday night. Well, go home. Not to the club. Are you telling them that, Kieran? Because that's, that's also a part of it. It's also a part of it now. Because if we're going to do some of the laws, we got to, we have to do them all. And what I will say, though, and I alluded to it, I'm almost done, earlier, is that, yes, these books have been tampered with, right? So even when I say, like, do all of the, law, this is a lot of learning that humanity has to do right now. A lot of restructuring of these books, going into possibly like the ancient Ivri, the ancient Hebrew, pulling out the original intended definitions and meanings, right? Like, for instance, I believe the word for soil that we translate in English for soil is a feminine word. I was just reading that in one of the Hebrew books that I have, and that's a whole other issue, right? But if that's true, we came from the soil. Let's just say, the scriptures, we came from that. Then is it saying that we came from a feminine, environment? Of course it is, right? But yet, when we look in the book, everything is he, talking about God. And that's another issue, right? So if you just take the book as it is written, Kieran, and anyone else who's listening, in its very patriarchal, it is very patriarchal, in its patriarchal form, one would be seeking to be righteous, but would be, unfortunately, led astray, even in trying to keep Yah's word and laws. That's the crazy part about it. That's what's crazy. Is that sometimes keeping to the letter of the law as it is written in the English translations and all that, and sometimes even in Hebrew, depending on, how far you're going back in your translations and transliterations, can actually lead people astray as well. Because the Most High is not only masculine energy, the Most High is a very feminine energy. And so is your Messiah. But that is another video altogether. So with that, I will say yes, give credit to the Most High in all that we do. Do not practice witchcraft. I agree with you. But I will say that when the next magical, righteous woman and man comes down your path, Kieran, don't necessarily condemn them of doing witchcraft if they're practicing God's magic. Peace and shalom. Shalom, my friend.